All right, so I have blocked out. I'm trying to keep my demos pretty simple. Just those foreground shapes. I can do them quickly for the fox as well, using the biggest, simplest shapes. Double click, pick the color, use the move tool to replace, and if you want to, Command T, right click within the box to warp. You can make those simple shapes that you start out with more complex. Warp works great on organic objects like these, but on mechanical objects like buildings, cars, you want to use things like distort and skew, and those will suit your needs a little better. Actually, let's try. And don't forget the simple ways of using free transform, just to rotate and scale shapes. That's still very useful, and then you can combine that with warp or some of the other distortions. To make it what you need it to be. When you're on the move tool, if you want just tiny movements, you can also use your arrow keys to do what Photoshop calls nudging. And the more you zoomed in, the smaller those nudges will be. All right, last one before I show you the next steps. These handled curves, you can really push them pretty far. You'll see them again when we use Illustrator. They're a little tricky to use, but for making curves, they're the best options we have. This is a good example where I can just make a duplicate of a complex shape and then use it for another complex shape, like the ear. Change its color a little bit. Put it behind the other one. If I'm really picky, use warp to just refine it. Then I can make a duplicate of that. And you'll do this a lot when you're doing logo design or symmetrical design. Just flip it on its side and make your tweaks from there. But what I liked about the little prints animation is nothing was cookie cutter. Everything was very, very distinct. All right, so this is what I have so far. The little shapes of his hair, all of those little details can be done in multiple ways. Right now I'll just do it kind of like this, and I'll use free transform. Well, first I'll just rotate it slightly. And then use distort, which is a great kind of mechanical way of pushing your corners around. I don't need to worry about all those little undercuts yet. And all the little triangles cut out from that. And we'll see if I ever need to worry about it. But for right now, I have just the foreground kind of blocked in. So now, how do I do the background without covering all that I've done? So I'm going to go to the background layer and make a duplicate of it. Then I'm going to move that background copy all the way to the very top. And then I'm going to take its opacity way down. So I really only need to see the differentiation between shapes. So about 25%. Right now it doesn't look that different, right? But I can see my shapes now overlaying the image, and it helps me to change it. I'm also going to lock that background copy. And the only thing I don't like about this method is it shows me all the work I still have to do, but it makes it so I can't use the auto select layer anymore. So when I want to change something, I have to find it the old-fashioned way. This is how you can fine-tune, especially if something just isn't working for you. Now, in terms of these big background shapes, and the ideal for the end of today is to not have any just blank white space in there. It's ideal to have just big blocks of cut out paper, right? So I can do a big rectangle, and I can fill it with a pale yellow, and I can put that behind everything. And then I want to find these ellipses for the green hills. Oops. You just hit delete if you pick the wrong shape. Let's make that a green. And it looks like it's transparent. It's not transparent, it's just that there's the background overlapped on everything. So I'm working from the bottom up here. Make another ellipse. Move it around. Make one more for the center. And I might need to warp this one. Okay. So now I just need the fox's tail. And then I'll be able to fine tune it before turning it in next class. This will use the Polygon Tool, 3 sides. I'm just going to guess at the color right now and move this above those backgrounds. And transform it and warp it until it's the shape I want. Okay, so I'm pretty close. Now I just have a foreground bunch of grass that I can put in as a darker green. I'll warp that. And I might need to do a few different types of shapes to get exactly what I want. This is getting pretty close. So at the end of the day, if you turn off everything except your shapes, it should have the appeal of your composition. And I might do another pale green wavy oval in the midground there, and I need to do a little rectangle for his neck. But that's basically this project. This is where I'll pick up next time. Then I'll show you how, if we wanted to, we could fill these with gradations. Maybe that would be nice for the sunset here. But right now it's in a pretty good place. So I'm going to save it, File, within Photoshop, File, Save As a Photoshop file, but I want it to be my name. I'm going to call this Shape Composition Exercise. To the desktop as a Photoshop file. I don't need to save it as a JPEG because I'm not ready to submit it yet. I check that it's there. Here it is. And now I'm going to organize my files. All right, so I go to my folder, my exercises, create a new folder here, which is 2 Shape Composition. Make sure I bring my Photoshop in, but also bring my reference photo in, and anything else that I did for it. And while I'm here, I can bring